I happened to look through the Wall Street Journal before going on the air this morning, and I came across an editorial. Now, the Wall Street Journal editorial page was not allied with Donald Trump's campaign, although they're grudgingly admitting there are some things they like that he's doing. Obviously, they break ranks with him when it comes to the immigration issue. The Wall Street Journal has long editorialized for pretty much open borders because the people who read the Wall Street Journal want cheap labor, and they really don't think about anything other than that. And they don't think about long term consequences of what they would be doing. It's all about, hey, what can I get right now? Yet, they are defending the writers of this editorial. It might be Paul Gigot. He helps out with a lot of the editorials that are written there. You may be familiar with his show on Saturdays at Fox News Channel. But they're talking about this Steve Bannon, who Democrats are screaming and yelling. Look, Donald Trump won the election. Remember when Barack Obama won in 2009? He basically said, hey, tough, I won. In other words, oh, but he needs to reach out across the aisle. No, he doesn't. He already has both houses of Congress. He has no need to reach out across the aisle. And Harry Reid, well, this is a bad decision, and Mr. Bannon is a racist bigot. You ever notice after, well, you never saw Harry Reid while the Beverly Hillbillies were still on TV, and then Irene Ryan supposedly passed away, and then all of a sudden, you see this guy named Harry Reid running around the. There is a heck of a resemblance. That's all I'm saying. The writer at the Journal says today, "Who is Steve Bannon?" And then I'm jumping down to paragraph 3. Now, Bannon is a Navy veteran. He worked for Goldman Sachs. He had a radio show. He is the editor, or was the editor. I guess he stepped away to help out with the Trump campaign of Breitbart News. Now, Bannon is accused of being an anti-Semite by all the Democrats because 20 years ago, while he was divorcing his wife in court, she claimed that he had made anti-Semitic remarks. Well, I've been in divorce court. It's not pretty. Things are exaggerated. Things are taken out of context, and things are often, well, they're downright lies. And it turns out, well, I'll share Alan Dershowitz with you on this in a few minutes, and he explains it, I think, a bit more. Dershowitz says the guy wanted his kids to go to a Catholic school, and she apparently wanted them to go somewhere else, and that's what the rift was about. It's not about anti-Semitism. He was also very close to Andrew Breitbart, which is why he ended up taking over the firm. And Breitbart was Jewish. But the writer at the Wall Street Journal says, we've never met Mr. Bannon, and we don't presume to know his character. But maybe one lesson of 2016 is that deciding that Americans who disagree with you are bigots is a losing strategy. Politics would be healthier if accusations of racism in the country that twice elected the first black president were reserved for more serious use. In other words, we don't like him, so we're going to claim he's a racist and a bigot, and gosh, it worked so well for you on Election Day last week, didn't it? Oh, that's right. You lost. You lost big time. Not only with the presidency, you failed to take either house of Congress. You lost governorships across the country. You lost seats by the hundreds in state legislatures across the country. You couldn't even run decent campaigns in the 24th district, legislative district here in Twin Falls, despite all of your claims that you would. And screaming and yelling that everybody out there who doesn't like all of these Sharia-loving immigrants, oh, they're all just a bunch of racist bigots. I don't like them. You shouldn't like them either. Alan Dershowitz, speaking on MSDNC yesterday, he probably won't be invited back after making some of these comments. I want you to take a listen to this if we have an opportunity. Do we have it in the queue? Searching. No, that's not it. Well, it's here in my paperwork. I know that it's here in my paperwork. So what I'll do instead, for the time being while I look for it, this is why I need new glasses. These bifocals never worked. I guess I've got to go to the quadrifocals or something. We'll take a caller first, and I'll conduct my search for Dershowitz. But here you go, caller. You're up next. You're on the air on KLIX.
Bill, yesterday you were commenting on John Bolton. I've always kind of liked John Bolton, and I was wondering what your major complaint was with him.
He's a warmonger, and I don't think this country can afford to do nation building all over the world any longer.
Cool. That answers my question. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. I don't care that Vladimir Putin has issues with the Ukrainians. It has nothing to do with me. And I don't care that Vladimir Putin has issues with terrorists in the Middle East, who he's killing, by the way, by the bucket loads in Syria. And that actually might be a good thing. And John Bolton, meanwhile, seems to think, well, we'll just go shove everyone around and make the world safe for Wall Street. Well, yeah, God bless Wall Street, but I think that the rest of us should have a say in this, and it isn't always in our best interests. I think that some of these old line neocons, which is what they're called in the Republican Party, are dangerous people because I don't think they're looking out for the best interests of the country. I think they're looking out for the best interests of whoever their donor class. And again, the donor class I just mentioned a few minutes ago, the donor class are the people who are out there saying, you know what, we need to eliminate that border so that Esteban and Julio can come here and take your job. Won't that be good? Well, no, it won't be good for me. Well, pay no attention to yourself. I'll make sure that I throw you a few scraps, and you can always sign up for an EBT card. Although I don't want to pay the taxes to fund that, so you'll have to figure out a way to forage for food in the forest at night. I don't trust guys like John Bolton. These are the people who would take us into World War III. Oh, well, we need to tell the Chinese they can't build artificial islands in the Pacific. Why? How does that threaten me? Well, because you want to start World War III and lob nuclear bombs back and forth, is what you're telling me? That's the type of guy John Bolton is. We won the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan a decade ago or more. And yet they've still got to put our blood and treasure on the line in those countries. I don't get it. I'm sorry. It's beyond me. Alan Dershowitz speaking yesterday on MSDNC to a reporter who seems perplexed because Dershowitz won't denounce Steve Bannon.
I don't know whether he's an anti-Semite or not. I just don't think you should toss that phrase around casually unless there's overwhelming evidence. There's an enormous difference between three things. One, is he personally an anti-Semite? I've heard no evidence to support that. He has hired Joel Pollack, who worked with him for 4 years, who's an Orthodox Jew, who wears a kippah, who's married to, has a mixed-race marriage. He has been very positive toward Jews and toward Israel. So that's number one. I think the evidence that he's an anti-Semite is just not there. Number two is, has his paper become the actual vehicle for bigotry? And number three is he supported by bigots? Let's turn to number three first. Yes, he is. But to show you an analogy, if Keith Ellison, who's a decent, good person, were to be appointed the head of the Democratic National Committee, Hamas would support it, would cheer and yell, because he has had some association with Farrakhan in the past. He's made some statements about maybe that 9/11 was something.
Should be clear, though, in the case of Keith Ellison you're talking about now, this is Congressman from Minnesota who's trying to lead the DNC.
Good person.
But he also, the Farrakhan stuff you're talking about was he participated in the Million Man March, helped organize that in 95, and he said once he found out sort of a full history of Farrakhan's statements, he said he considers an anti-Semite, doesn't want anything to do with it.
Once he decided to run for Congress, of course he knew, everybody knew that Farrakhan was an anti-Semite. You can't listen for 2 minutes without hearing him rail against the Jewish people. I'm making an analogy only on the point of you can't always judge a person by the supporters. What we're seeing in this country is a very dangerous development on both sides. We're seeing the Republicans move alt-right. We're seeing the Democrats move hard left. And I have to tell you, the only thing the hard left and the hard right have in common, they hate Jews. They generally hate Israel. They generally hate America. And I think we as centrist Americans have to be very concerned.
The reporter trying to interrupt him there to defend Keith Ellison, the black Muslim who's going to run the Democrat National Committee. Well, he only helped organize the Million Man March, and then when he discovered that Farrakhan was looking to kill Jews, no, it wasn't a secret. Back in the 1990s, I was with a group of reporters, small gaggle of us, that interviewed Louis Farrakhan when he was denying that he was an anti-Semite. Well, little did he know, like the day before, a group of us had actually come across a video that had been provided to us by the Jewish Student Center at the local campus of Farrakhan calling out the Jews, essentially threatening them, and saying that if they didn't straighten out, that he and his kind were going to come straighten it out for them. And when we brought it up, he still denied it. He sat there as a bald-faced liar and claimed he'd never said it. Dude, you're on tape. It's you. You're talking here. I have an old video, and I've shared the audio on the air with you before, where he's talking about a war against white Americans, which is only just about a year ago that he made those statements at a Baptist church in Washington, D.C. He denied it. I think he was telling us if we asked him any more questions, he was going to have we white devils killed. So this Ellison is the guy who's going to lead the DNC, and nobody in media is saying, maybe these black Muslims, these Nation of Islam types, maybe they're dangerous. No. They're Democrats. They're good. Republicans bad. Steve Bannon bad. Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX and newsradio1310.com. Do you hear a clicking sound around the valley? You know what that is? That's the sound of furnaces kicking on throughout the region. Why is that happening? Because we're going to have a couple of days of somewhat wintry weather. If you have issues with that furnace and it's not performing properly, maybe not working at all, you need to call the pros at Ramsey Heating and Electric. They'll come out and get the job done right, and they'll get it done right the first time. Problem-free, cozy winters are found at Ramsey Heating and Electric, 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley. You can telephone 678-0459. That's Ramsey Heating and Electric, where they sell warm winters and cool summers. Do want to point out, got a lot more coming up this morning. A couple of topics that we may not have time to get too deeply into. But one of the leaders of the world's largest church, well, the leader of the world's largest church, let me just say that, he is the leader, is making a statement saying that his bishops in the United States have to get behind immigrants and support them. I got some mixed thoughts on that. I'll share his comments if I get a chance a little later in the show today. Also, one of the other things I wanted to mention before we wrap up, in neighboring Oregon, the people who've been trying to oppress Christians there, because some Christians believe that if they actually take part in a wedding ceremony for a same-sex couple, that they are, this is what the same-sex crowd doesn't realize. If you actually take the Bible seriously, which obviously they don't, you feel if you take part in something that is an affront to God, then you are threatening, your soul. Your own salvation is in question. And yet liberals would like you to go straight to hell, apparently. And finally, the voters in Oregon are saying no. And if we get a chance, I want to share some details on that. There's a case going on right now in court in one of the courts in one of our neighboring states that will shed a lot on this, and the outcome could end up in the U.S. Supreme Court. And if you have justices appointed by President Trump, well, some questions there too about where he stands, but people he'd likely nominate will have more than enough to say about religious liberty in this country. And that could be a good thing if you're a person who's a Bible-fearing Christian. Details coming up a little later in the program. Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX and newsradio1310.com. It's 37. When Dr. Tripp was here, we were talking about weight loss and how you can, get up and move around a little bit more often. Sometimes if you just do 5 minutes every hour, it can not only help with weight loss, though, it can help you with heart health and maybe even eventually help delay or prevent cancer. Well, I was commenting to him and a lot of you too as well over the last few weeks that I've dropped in the neighborhood of 40 pounds. I haven't been on the scales in a couple of weeks, so I can't tell you if it's more than that at the moment, but I've been doing it through something called the Total Body Transformation System, which promotes healthy weight loss and wellness. It's not one of these fad diets. In fact, it is backed by a couple of decades now of actual scientific research and has been written about favorably by researchers who study diet at Columbia, Cornell, Tufts, and other prestigious universities. The Total Body Transformation System has been awarded some U.S. patents, too. Reducing waist circumference would be one, and the other for increasing metabolic rate and weight control. Scientifically proven to burn 6 times more fat and lose 8 times more weight than normal results from diet and exercise alone. And the average participant will drop 22 pounds and lose 4 inches off their waist in just 2 months. That's 60 days, roughly. And we want to point out, too, as well, that I'm not the only person who's lost weight on this diet. In fact, marketing executive Don Chandler has also lost 50 pounds. Now he's just maintaining his weight, and he looks great, too, as well. You could reach him if you'd like to know more. His telephone number, 208-731-3560. And he can actually clue you in on how this works and give you all of the details. And once more, Don Chandler's telephone number is 208-731-3560. I've got to add just quickly if I could. People ask, well, you've got to be hungry. No, I'm not. Then they ask, well, yeah, but I've got more energy and I'm not hungry. I mean, this is the amazing thing. And I felt it within a week. So once again, you can reach Don if you have questions. A telephone number to reach him, 731-3560. Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and newsradio1310.com. 925, 36 right now. And I was mentioning a couple of stories that are coming out of some of our neighboring states. And I have to tell you, I think that maybe the election that we've just gone through should quiet, but it won't because they have most of the media with them. But it should quiet a lot of people in this country who seem to believe that we need to give up all of our own beliefs in order to satisfy their beliefs. I'm going to tell you right now, a lot of people won't say it because they're worried about being vilified by the politically correct or the media or shamed on Facebook or on Twitter. But a lot of Americans still believe, no matter what the elites say, that a lot of these alternative lifestyles people are practicing are deviant. Can we make that clear? And the Bible tells them that. Now, the liberals all say, well, then you've got to get rid of your Bible. Well, wait a minute. Why don't you go tell your Muslim friends to get rid of their Quran? See, they don't dare do that because they're afraid of them. Daily Signal has a couple of pieces today that I wanted to mention. The Oregon official who ordered the former owners of Sweet Cakes by Melissa to pay $135,000 in damages for refusing to make a cake for a same-sex wedding, lost to a Republican in his bid for Oregon Secretary of State. Brad Avakian, commissioner of the Oregon Bureau of Labor and Industries and a staunch Democrat, lost in the race to Dennis Richardson, a conservative. The result is historic, ending a 20-year stronghold of Democrat control over statewide offices. Richardson is a Christian. Richardson doesn't believe in same-sex marriage. He's a conservative, and he won statewide in one of the most liberal states in the country. Why is that? I can bet that even in Portland and many of the other liberal bastions, Eugene and Salem in our neighboring state of Oregon, that a lot of people aren't comfortable with a lesbian couple bullying a family that was making cakes and putting them out of business simply so they can collect ka-ching, ka-ching, $135,000. Oh, but they hurt my feelings. Well, sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me. No, they did, and I need their money now. If this is going to be the way that the left collects money from Bible-believing, God-fearing Americans, then this country is in deep, deep trouble. I see the election results this past week, not only in this particular race in Oregon, but I see them nationwide as a repudiation of this effort by these people to force 99.7% of this country to follow what they do. We're not following your lead. Is that clear? You can go do what you want, but leave us alone. And then this also from the Daily Signal. The Washington Supreme Court, that is Washington State, heard the case of a 72-year-old florist who is facing fines after declining to make flower arrangements for a same-sex wedding. During the hearing, lawyers for the florist were asked to explain how declining to make flower arrangements for a wedding like this is different from discrimination based on race. Quote, a Muslim graphics designer shouldn't be compelled to create designs promoting a Jewish Friends of Israel group, unquote, said Kristen Wagner, the lawyer for the defendant, in her opening statement. She went on to say, quote, a gay public relations manager shouldn't be forced to promote the Westboro Baptist Church, and a Christian floral designer shouldn't be forced to create custom wedding designs for a wedding that is not between one man and one woman, unquote, amen. I hope that these messages start to get through the noggins of the totalitarians on the left who believe that it is their duty to go out. They don't want to just force you to take part. They want you to come into the boudoir on election night and take part. I kid you not. They are going to compel people to do these things and to tell you it is right then they're going to tell you not only is it right, but you have to do it often. It is no different than the folks who used to worship Baal, who used to force others to take part in their devious, disgusting rituals where they would throw babies into fires. 9:30. Bill Cowley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX and newsradio1310.com. It's 37. I've got more coming up. Hey, get this. American voters say they don't trust the media. And the media says, well, we'll show you. We'll double down. More details coming up.